What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Atheist Roundtable, and hope everybody's having a good Sunday afternoon. And today we're going to have a debate, the great debate. Does God exist? So we'll bring our debaters on the screen here, and I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this here the last week or two since Pasta scheduled this with these two gentlemen. So first and foremost, gentlemen, welcome to the Atheist Roundtable. How you feeling today?
Good.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. Very good. Very good. Thanks for coming on to the round table to have this discussion. It's one that I know all of us enjoy having. I'll just give a kind of a brief introduction for everybody listening, and then I will get out of the way and let you guys do what you do. So up the top there, that is Mr. Adam Rich. I know some of you've seen his face on here before. Debated, was it about 2 months ago? You had a debate on here, right around there. Anyway,
yeah.
But Adam and Mike met on TikTok, and Adam has a reputation for, as we discussed backstage, poking the atheist bear, so to speak, and makes some content that it does a challenge, a thought provoking, and make you think. And there's some foolishness that is said on there from both Christians and atheists alike. But Mike will jump in there and have comments and just destroy. No, I'm kidding. But we'll jump in there and go back and forth, and they have a great dialogue. And now this is their time, instead of it being confined to 59 seconds or so. They can actually have an open dialogue, an open conversation, and really get to the meat of it. So and then below there is Mike, also on TikTok, like we said, and Mike also debated. I think it was when we first started the platform, if I remember right, but debated Pastor Joan on here. Yeah, it was right around April, May, something like that. But so you'll know his face from there as well. So again, guys, thank you for being on with us. I'll be kind of in the background. If I need to jump in, I will. But for the listeners, they're going to have 10-minute opening statements. Then we'll go to open dialogue, and then we'll finish up probably around the hour mark, right around there. So, gentlemen, the floor is yours. And Mike, I believe you're starting off for us.
Sure, I'll go ahead. All right, so first of all, thank you guys for having me on. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Pasta Mike, and everybody at TART. So today we just want to have a little conversation between me and Adam, right? He believes in God. I don't. I have a position that I'm a Gnostic atheist in terms of the gods that I have seen, right? All the gods that we have seen in history, I believe that we can confidently say that they don't exist. Now, we don't know much about the universe. We really don't. You know the saying, the more we learn, right, the less we know? I think that's very true, because there's always going to be questions that we're always going to have, right? You can keep asking why. Like, everybody wants to know why we're here, right? Why are we here? Well, we can keep asking these questions forever if you think about it, right? So I grew up as a Christian. I grew up in a religious household, but I never really questioned my beliefs. I didn't until about 6-7 years ago. That's when I really started to become an atheist, because I realized I had no justification for my beliefs. But now I think the evidence is stacking on and on. Like, the more we learn about science, right? The more we learn about the world, we realize that this concept of God, the concept of a God, any God, is just not anymore. It's not useful anymore, right? So that's just my position. So Adam, if you want to go ahead, go ahead.
Right. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Mike, for doing this. And I know we've talked a few times here and there on TikTok, but like you said, you can't really have a big fruitful conversation in a 90 or a 59-second video, or however many character limit you have in the TikTok comments there. But I take the position that I do believe that God exists. I was also kind of raised in a Christian household, but that never, I know a lot of people hear that and they think that I just buy in because that's how I was raised, but the thing about me and even my dad, who's always been a big Christian and kind of taught me a lot, is he's always pushed for me to question. It's never been like oh, you just should believe and just, this is what the Bible says, so just believe it and just don't think about it, don't ask about it. No, I've always wanted to know everything I can possibly know about reality, about Earth, about the universe, about science, about history, about the Bible itself, about, is this guy Jesus a real guy? Was he not only a real person, but is he who he claimed to be? And when you dive into these things, especially in the philosophical element, I've always been kind of curious about philosophy, but I never realized that was like always asking why. Why is this like this? Why does this exist? Why? What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? Just like Mike said. And I agree that you could kind of always ask these questions. You always are going to have more, because everything that you learn, I 100% agree with Mike when he said that the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. I 100% agree with that. The more that we do learn, though, the more evidence I'm seeing personally stack up in favor of God. When you hear about who the idea of what God is, you have to basically define what that being is, because people will always say, well, why your God? What's this God? Why is it not the other 4,000 or 5,000 or whatever gods there are? Why is your God right? And I always say that it's not just my God. It's not the one that I prefer. When I'm talking about God, when I ever talk about God, I'm talking about the maximally greatest being possible, meaning anything that is possible, he can do. Any time period possible, he can be there, or he is there. Any abilities, just the maximally great. That also goes for kindness. The maximally greatest, fairest, most just being is the standard of all things, the standard of righteousness, the standard of what is good and bad, good and evil, fairness, all of these things. So you have to understand what God we're talking about before we go into this, because people, like, the biggest thing I can say is that God does not have a weakness. Every other God you can think of that was created, like Zeus and all these, they all, if you look them up, Google, look in mythology, whatever, they are all known for a weakness of some kind. Now, I don't know every single specific 4,000 God or whatever. All I'm saying is the maximally greatest being that I believe is in existence. I do believe if you dig deep enough, you will find that it is the Christian God, but that's not why we're here. I don't want to go too far off on Christianity unless we get into that. That's fine. But I just wanted to talk about the existence of God and why I think not only is he possible, but he is. I can't factually hand you something that shows physical evidence of him, but I do believe he is 100% true. I don't have any doubt with my belief in him. It's just that being able to physically show that to somebody else is in my opinion, impossible. So you have to go with what logically adds up. If it contradicts anything that we see in reality, then anything that you see that contradicts what we know to be true can't be possible. So if we know that something's true, then you can already eliminate the contradictory part of that. So what I think is everything that we do know to be true does line up with God, his existence, and then to take it even further, the Bible and all those things. But anyway, the reason that we're here, I'll wrap it up with this. I do believe that there is a God. I believe that there is overwhelming evidence of that. And that doesn't mean proof. Evidence and proof are two totally different things. Proof proves something. Evidence builds the case. It is support for your claim. And so I do believe there's overwhelming evidence, but I also cannot offer a single shred of proof. So that should help Mike there. So with that, that's where I stand. I believe God exists, and hopefully we'll kind of lay out some evidence for both angles here, and we'll see what you guys think when this is done.
Hey, Adam, can you mute your mic? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so you say we need evidence, right? Well, I say we need evidence. You say you have evidence, but I want to hear that later. But so these are really the reasons why I believe there is no God. These are reasons to believe there is no God. First of all, it's contradictory, right? The concept of a God, the omnipotence, the omnibenevolence, these are contradictory concepts. Can your God create a rock that is too heavy for him to lift? Can he? is your God really all love? You describe this God, whatever that means, as an all loving being, right? And it's all powerful, all loving, but yet he sits up in heaven and watches people send themselves to hell, right? He doesn't intervene in any way. If I was God, if my creation was, doing something that I didn't want, I would try to direct them to a better path instead of just sending them to hell. I would do what I can to not let them suffer, especially eternally. Number two is, everybody says it's God's plan, but this concept of God's plan, like everything is God, like you believe there's no free will, right? You believe in free will. I see that on your TikToks a lot. But if you actually look at it closer, we really don't. We really don't have free will, and we can talk about that later too. Also, the concept of God, there is no real definition of a God. It's very poorly defined. Everybody has different definitions. I can ask on TikTok, I ask multiple people, what is a God? And some people will say what you say, some people say other things. The definition of a God is very poorly understood. Also, tradition, it's very traditional thing to believe in a God. Many cultures before Christianity, before Islam, before all these religions, there were other religions that had some form of God, like a sun god, a moon god, weather gods. Believing in God is a very human thing. It's a very human thing to do. It's clearly man-made. Also, so the free will thing is, we really don't have free will. And then morality. You talk about morality a lot in your videos, that, we only get morality from God. Well, we actually don't. We can talk about that later too. So you can pick and choose what you want to talk about. But all I want to know from you is your best evidence for God. What's your best evidence that you have for your God? And that's it.
All right. Well, that's a lot to unpack there. A lot of different topics. I do believe that morality has to come from a standard outside of our minds. It has to. Otherwise, we wouldn't all have morality built within us. It's not just somebody says something. There is no culture that says we applaud murder. We like rape. There is no culture that says that. They may do it, but that doesn't mean that they think that it's a celebratory thing or a good thing to do. They just do it. So there is a difference between following the moral code and knowing what it is. We all know that it's wrong to cheat at a board game. It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't do anything horrible, but you know that it's unfair. God would be the standard of justice. When I say that he's the maximally greatest being, the definition really is that anything logically possible, he can do. Anything that's not logically possible, nothing can make that happen. It would contradict itself in terms. So therefore, if it's not a logical possibility at all, then no, God doesn't do those things, like the lifting a rock so heavy or making a rock so heavy he can't lift. If those two things contradict themselves, just like he can't create a squared circle because those two definitions contradict each other. He can't create a one-ended stick, can't create a married bachelor. He can't there's just anything that is a logical contradiction he cannot do, because it's not a possibility. So I'm saying anything that is possible. When people talk about God being able to do everything, that's different than being able to do all things that are possible. And so I don't believe that he does everything, because he also doesn't sin. He doesn't love he doesn't love sin. He doesn't embrace sin. He doesn't sin himself. So there's a lot of things that he doesn't do, and it doesn't mean that he can't do these things so he's limited. It means that by the definition of logical contradictions, they are not possible. So therefore those things don't get done. Also, we talked about free will, and we can get deeper into this later. I'll just summarize it kind of quickly. The way that God can have his plan and we still have free will is best described by introducing time travel. We all know the idea of time travel, traveling to the future, to the past, all that stuff. If you were to do whatever you're going to do for the next year, you, I'm sure, believe, well, unless you think that you're just a mindless robot where you just react to everything, there is no real thoughts, there is no real choice, you just have to do things. That to me alone is kind of absurd, because we have choices every single day. What people get locked into when it comes to God is they think that because God knows the outcome, that means that we don't have an option. And that's two totally different things. What he does is it'd be like if you traveled right now to the future a year from now and you've seen every single thing that I do from now until that time period. That doesn't take away my choices that I make. That doesn't take away my free will. That means that you've now moved to a different plane of time and you are looking back at what has played out based on the choices that I made. That's how God does it. It doesn't mean that he ordained everything to happen at a specific instance and you don't have a choice. You just have to react. It means he wanted an outcome, a certain specific outcome. He wanted to make free creatures that can choose to love things freely, because by definition, love is freely given. You can't force somebody to love you. I think all the women out there know that because of all the guys that chase them and they have to turn them away. You cannot force somebody to love you. So love has to be freely given. If God wants love to be freely given and for him to receive it freely by free creatures, he has to give them free will. Now, what that also means, though, is that he can then make a universe in a sense that it will allow free creatures to do their own choices, make their own free will choices, but he makes it in a way where he will get the outcome that he wants. So he sets it up in order for that. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't wake up and decide which bowl of cereal you want to have. That means that he knows what choices you're going to make and how it's going to affect others with the ripple effect. He sees those ripple effects. So he's able to see the outcomes that we're going to freely choose, how they're going to affect others. And if you have the ability to see the end and know what kind of, it's like reverse engineering. If you know that you want to make a product or you want to make an end result, and you know the end result that you're looking for, you then go back and reverse engineer how to make that come to be. And that's exactly what he did. So it allows you to have free will. It allows you to freely choose to love people, love him also, if you want to. It also allows you to reject him if you want to. But that doesn't change his plan, and it doesn't change us having the ability to act freely and do what we want to do. So therefore, I've heard people say that, well, if he knows that, then he knows that I would go to hell before he even made me. So therefore, he's making me go to hell. That's not the case. He is also able to, at any given time, show up in your life in some way and allow you to feel his presence or see his existence or see evidence for him. And if you then reject that, he's going to give you so many chances. I don't know how many chances he's going to give you. It doesn't say that there's a set number, but he knows what is fair. If he is fair, which I believe he is, he's the standard of righteousness and fairness, then he knows what it would take to get you, or what he should do, what the right thing for him to do for you to get you to come on board. If you still reject that, he allows you to do that. It's your free will. And I think you said it perfectly, Mike, when you started by saying that we send ourselves to hell. That was very important. And I agree with you 100%. He's not the one making you go to hell. He's giving you the option. Hell is the separation from God. And I don't want to drag this on too long. I'll give you a chance to respond. I'll wrap it up with this. He is in heaven. The people that freely choose to want to spend eternity with him are there with him. They trust in him. They believe in him. They give their lives to him, whatever. And he allows them in his presence. Hell is a separation of that. And if you think about sin, what it means, if he is the standard of righteousness and fairness, he has to judge bad things. If you committed murder and you went to court and the judge was like, well, I'd like to be nice to you and just not punish you this time. How is that fair for all the other murders? It wouldn't be. So therefore, what he does is he gives you an easy access to him and his kingdom. He says, all you have to do is trust me, trust that Jesus is the Son, and follow him. And that's it. There is no, you don't have to, it's the only religion where you don't have to jump through hoops and make sure you do all these traditions and works and standards to get into heaven. You are saved purely off of just trusting in him and believing that he is God and that Jesus died on the cross to save you. He paid the debt for you. All you have to do is trust that, and that's all it takes. Every other religion, it's, well, I've done something wrong, so I better make sure I do like 3 or 4 or 5 good things to make sure that I'm back in his good graces. That's not at all how Christianity works. And I think that it shows his mercy and his grace. But anyway, we can get into more deeper stuff after that, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you for letting me respond to that. So, first of all, the fact is that we are just products, right? The stuff that makes up you, the particles that make up your body, we are just particles in motion. We are products of a vast sequence of events that have happened since the Big Bang. Okay, that this is like proven science. Okay, so now if you're going to say that God can, we send ourselves to hell, right? We send ourselves to hell. Couldn't God have made a world? Couldn't have God made a reality where we have free will and we don't suffer? We don't, like, why did God make this reality where there is suffering? If he can do it, if he can make a world where, if he's all powerful, he can create a world where there's no suffering and we have free will. He can do it. So, by the way, love, like you said, love is a chemical reaction in the brain. All right, we can see what happens when you are attracted to somebody. You can see what happens in the brain. We can see dopamine and all these things basically signal in your brain. And this is what we mean by love. We can see thoughts. Yes, we can see thoughts. Thoughts are things. Okay, they are electrochemical signals in your brain. Yes, we don't have free will in that sense. So we are not really, again, like I'll say it again, we're the products of a sequence of events. Okay, and just because we can see, just because God can see, it doesn't mean, I'm not necessarily disputing that fact that God may have may know the future and the past, but it doesn't mean that, I'm not disputing that fact. I'm disputing the fact that the plan, like, there is no plan. If God actually had a plan for us, he would not send us to hell. That's not a loving God. But the main point I want to drive home is that he could have made a world where there's no suffering. And why did he make this reality if we didn't have to suffer? So that's what I have to tell you.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Well, you have to know, one, none of us, myself included, no one on earth could possibly know 100% what God's overall plan is and why he put it into motion in the first place. I have a hunch, I have a theory on it, but it doesn't really matter. I can't prove it. It's just purely based off of the characteristics and the traits that you read about, that you hear, and that you see in the world around you. I think it's kind of obvious why he does what he does. The fact that if there was no suffering, if everything was perfect and good, it would almost make you, it wouldn't make you a robot, but it would almost make you a robot in the sense of, what would you really have to be sinful for? Or what would you even have? See, to me, this is like a giant test to see who is going to freely choose him, because he had the angels in heaven long before he ever made us. It's talked about, I mean, if you go by the Bible, of course, which is the only word that we have to go by from him. But if you go by that, he had the angels in heaven, and even the ones that saw him, they had so much power. They were way smarter than we were. And a third of them still rejected him. It shows that it's not about proof of him. It's not about your smarts. It's about, do you want that life? Do you want to be there? And a third of them had power, had God knows what kind of intelligence they had, and a third of them rejected him. It wasn't because they thought that he wasn't good enough or anything like that. It was because they didn't want him. They had chances to go to him. When you talk about the separation from God in hell, see, it's easy to look at the punishment part, but you got to understand, we are all sinful. We are all guilty. If he wasn't a good judge, then we could get away with that stuff. But if he is a standard of righteousness, then you have to punish when somebody does bad. A parent, no parent, I'm a parent, I don't know if you are, but no parent wants to punish their kid, but you have to if you want to get good results out of them. Otherwise, it's chaos constantly. But you don't, you, by the eternal punishment part is a separation from him. It's a quarantine of evil. And it's people that, like you said, send themselves to hell. It's people that they don't send themselves to hell. It's that they reject God, and God has a place for them. God has a special place, because if the entire universe or the vast heavens and all that stuff is there for God and his chosen people that choose to freely love him, then the ones that don't and reject him need to be somewhere else, like a jail. They're all guilty. We are all guilty. So the point is, it's not about him. It's not that he's not loving. He obviously loves his create. Anything that you create, any child of yours, if you're a decent dad or mom, you love your child, no matter how destructive they are. I'm sure you've heard the term, he hates the sin, but he loves the sinner. So he loves his children, and he desperately wants to be a part of your life. That's why people do this. That's why he wrote the stuff down. That's why Jesus died on the cross for him. It was all purely to get as many people as possible. Now, you say that, could God have made a universe with no evil? Of course he could have, if he wanted to. The problem is, if you make that universe where there is no sin, there's no evil, there's no suffering, you've essentially created a group of robots who are all just going to fall in line. It's the same reason that I've even said in videos before. People are like, well, if God was real, he could show up right now. Of course he could. If he can create the entire universe from scratch, of course he can show up here when he wants to. The point, though, that he doesn't do that is because he wants free-willed creatures to freely choose to love him. If he showed up right now and showed his power, who on earth wouldn't follow him? Who would look at that kind of power and be like, nah, I'm all right, I'm all good? You wouldn't. You would see that and you would immediately be like, it'd be like if Superman showed up right now. If Superman showed up right now and nothing could stop him, who would not be like infatuated and follow that? It would almost be forcing you to love him by being overwhelmed by his power. That is not what he wants. He wants you to seek him out. It says in the Bible, seek and you shall find. He wants you to search for him. He wants you to actively try to have a relationship with him. If he just showed up and was all power, people would just fall in line and follow. Hitler did this on a totally opposite scale. He showed what kind of power he had. People were infatuated. They just blindly followed. There were tons of Nazis who committed evil, atrocious things, not because they were pure evil just like Hitler, but because they fell for it. They followed him and they were like, well, he knows what he's talking about. We'll just follow him anyway. God doesn't want you to just follow him because he's powerful. He wants you to freely, actively seek him out and find him and want to be with him. The evidence is all over the place. The beginning at which we can get into each one individually if you want. I'm more than happy to. But I think the biggest one is the fact that he sent Jesus down here to die on the cross. He claimed to be God and then died on the cross. And then he rose to show that he was God. So if God exists and Jesus isn't who he says he was, there's no reason that God would have revived him. He would have just been some evil guy lying to the people and then claiming it in God's name, and then God wouldn't have resurrected him for that. So I think it's very powerful, the fact that Jesus did claim to be God, then was killed for it, and then actually rose for it. But yeah, I mean, bottom line is God could make the universe however he wants. However, you don't know what the overall plan was. This could be, and I'm not saying it is because I don't know, but it is possible that this is the greatest universe known to man, to make the most amount of free loving creatures choose to be with him. This could be the greatest amount of quote unquote Christians or God loving people. This could be the greatest outcome. We don't know that. We don't know that if he would have tweaked one little thing, if it would have been better or worse. I doubt it would have been better, because I think if he wanted to make something better, he would have. So I think that this is probably the universe that would make the maximum number of people freely choose to follow him and want to be with him. But we don't know.
Okay, so I was trying to ask you why couldn't he have made a universe where we have free will and there's no bad things happening? That's what I was trying to ask you. You didn't really answer that. You haven't established that we even have free will in the first place. But let's say we do, and it's because we need, and that's where sin comes from, right? Why is there sin in the first place? If you say that we have free will, and let's jump to morality. Like you keep saying that we have morality comes from God. You would agree that morality comes from God, right? Well, do you understand that if I think morality comes from human beings? It does, because if say I were to punch you in the face, you wouldn't like that. I would think you wouldn't like that, right? Neither would I, because I can put myself in your shoes. I can say, hey, I don't like to be punched, neither do you. So we can shake on this. I would say, hey, Adam, let's shake on this fact. Let's not punch each other. Let's agree. Would you agree? Okay, yep. So there we go. We just established moral law right there. Would you agree with that?
No, you established an agreement.
Okay, but we set a moral standard to not punch each other, right? Did we not?
But why is it wrong to punch me? That's the difference.
Because it hurts. Because it hurts.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Why should it matter though?
Because I don't want to get hurt. I want to live the way I want to. I want to be happy and free, right?
Yeah, but if I don't want that, why am I wrong for it? Who decided that I'm wrong for doing that just because you don't like it?
Nobody said. I agree. There's no objective wrong in the universe, but you and me could set a moral law. That's the point. We can create more. We can create we can set a moral law within our society, within a group of people.
Well,
that's
what you're
what I'm
talking
trying
about
to get
is
to.
laws. You're talking about regular laws. That's not moral law. Moral is, well, what is good or evil, and why is there a good or evil? That is essentially what we're really getting at.
So what is evil to you? What is evil?
Doing something that is either harmful or, you're doing something in a way where somebody, it's not just making them unhappy, but it's a basically kind of fairness, and it's about people. It's also those things. It's about what people do like and don't like, but also it's about the fairness of it as well.
Okay. And do you need a God to understand what's fair and what's not fair? Do we need a God to know that I shouldn't punch you in the face because that might hurt you? Do we need a God for that?
No, but the point that I'm getting at is why, like, if this is the only life we have and there is no God, there is no afterlife, why should I care what you want is the point.
Because as a human species, as our society wants to flourish, that's what we should do. Because we want our next generations to survive.
Well, then why is rape wrong then? Because rape is the easiest way. And don't get me wrong, just to be clear, of course I think rape is wrong. But the point that I'm getting at, because this is a strong point, if it's all about the flourishing and the survival of the species, why on earth would we be the only species that doesn't want to rape?
Of course
it's wrong to rape. Because that's the easiest, quickest way to guarantee the flourishing of a species. That's why every other animal does it.
No. Of course there's limits, Adam. Of course there's limits. Many other different species have limits.
See, that's the point, is why is
why?
there a limit?
Because I don't want my body to be subjected to those harmful things. I don't want to be hurt or harmed.
Every other animal does, though.
No, many
I don't
other.
Think they want it either. But the point is they do it. So what I'm saying is why is every other creature, basically, essentially, in the entire planet, is more than willing to survive by raping to have reproduction, but humans draw the line there. Why are humans saying it's wrong?
Because we have communication skills. I can communicate with you and say, hey, let's not do this. Let's not punch each other in the face. Okay, we can communicate and say this and establish. We can write it on a stone or a piece of paper. We can say, hey, if I punch you, or if you punch me, I owe you $50. We can say that as a human species. Okay.
So if the gorillas all of a sudden learn how to talk to each other and communicate, which I think that plenty of animals communicate with each other all the time, just not the same way we do. But the fact of the matter is, if they all of a sudden could talk, then all of a sudden rape would be wrong for them too. Would they decide all of a sudden that
it is
no longer okay?
No, rape is objectively wrong because you're inflicting harm on another.
Morality.
Yes, there's no universal objective morality. I don't agree there is. There's no universal there's no universal morality, but morality can be, you and me, we can establish some kind of moral standard within our society, within our group. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, but I'm saying animals do that as well, but they still rape. Like, they still have groups. They still go out and hunt together. They still communicate with each other. Just because we don't hear them speak English or whatever language doesn't mean they're not communicating constantly. They're always communicating with each other. But for some reason, they don't have morals and humans do. So I'm wondering, why do humans have morals, but no other animal does?
Well, they do have morals. We are just holding ourselves to higher. We're just holding ourselves to higher standards because we evolved to be more empathetic animals. That's what we did. We evolved, or we have more complex brains. I can understand. A gorilla can't really comprehend much more than his surroundings. We can actually comprehend on a global scale. We can comprehend our actions and how they affect the entire globe. So we have a more complex way of thinking.
Sign language, dude. They're a lot smarter than you're giving them credit for.
No, I agree. I never said they're dumb. I'm saying we are a little bit more complex. We have more brain composition. That's it.
No, but do you understand? I guess the whole point that I'm getting at is, regardless if we can communicate differently, I'll give you that. We do communicate differently. What I'm saying is why is there a right and wrong? Like, because animals don't have that. They have emotions, but they don't have morals. Those are two totally different things. They don't have a code about stealing or cheating or lying or rape. They don't. Name one. I don't know of any animal that has a rape or a moral standard.
Bonobos. They're our closest genetic relatives.
What do they do that is that's morally right?
So what they do is they prevent other cousins or friends from stealing someone's food, and they actually give others food if they're hungry. That's what they do. So
that's more on an emotional level. That's not a moral.
Of course, no. They have a very simple standard. Of course, that's why my point is that we are more complex as Homo sapiens. That's it.
And I definitely agree with that. But I'm just saying that
what's the issue?
Rape is always going to be wrong. There's never going to be a time where we all of a sudden change that. Well, so that's the point, is why is that always wrong?
Because it harms you.
I get it, but there's no other animal that goes by that code. And saying that we've evolved, first off, that's a whole other conversation that we can get into. Evolution doesn't know what right or wrong is. So even if evolution were true, evolving to have morals doesn't. Evolution, you said, I think you would agree with this, is about survival, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the easiest way to survive is to rape, why on earth would we evolve and decide that that's wrong?
It's not the easiest way to survive. Because
it's the easiest way to guarantee the survival of the species, because you could just go off and find 5-6 girls, do whatever you wanted to do,
not
and
in humans.
Now you'd have 5 or 6 more of you.
Not in human beings. Humans can have like I said, I'll say it again, we have a more complex way of understanding things. Okay, if I were to do that to somebody, I would be, because we are more empathetic, we have more brain composition, I would be seen as an outcast. I would be rejected in society. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Humans are more complex as animals.
But I get it that we're complex, and I agree with that. But that's not an answer as far as why there is such a thing as right and wrong.
So if I punch you in the face, would that be right or wrong?
It would be wrong, but I'm telling you that there's a good reason for that, and it has nothing to do with evolution. It's because God is the standard of that. He's the one that is filled with righteousness.
But you haven't demonstrated that you need a God for that moral standard.
Of course you do, because if this standard exists beyond human beings, then it's beyond our minds. It's not like morality only existed once humans came along and had the brain power to decide if it's right or wrong. See, there is a right and wrong. Would you agree that regardless of, take humans out of the equation, would you agree that it's wrong for a big mean animal to steal the food of another animal? Would you agree that that's wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, now why is that wrong, even taking away all humanity?
In our perspective, it would be wrong. Yes.
It's still wrong for them. Do you think they like it? Do you think that the animals are so dumb that they don't care if somebody steals their food, so therefore it's not wrong to them?
if they could set moral standards, they would think it's wrong. Because if they were as empathetic as us, and they're not as empathetic, they would have that. They would think it was wrong. But because we are humans and we have this brain capacity, we can say it's wrong. Because
but you're still skipping the part about eliminate all humans. Eliminate all humans.
I agree.
A lion goes and kills a whole flock of rabbits and then takes all their food. Is that wrong to the rabbits?
Yeah, I think what you're trying to get to is if there's a universal morality. What?
Yeah, and I agree. I believe that there's 100% universal morality.
No, there isn't. No, why? How do you know that?
Because the standard of God would make that. He's the standard of fairness. He decided good and evil. The Bible talks about all this. You see it throughout human history. There is a right and wrong. What I'm saying is if you took away our human mind, yes, me and you can comment on it all day because we have our minds. What my point is would it be wrong? Would the animals not like it if a lion came up and stole all their food and then murdered half their children? Do you think that the mom rabbit would be okay with that? The point is they know it's not okay. And
of course not.
They do it, but humans are the only ones that actually hold some kind of an accountability and talk about it because of our communication, like you're saying. But the point is, it's still wrong, even if there's no humans. That's the point. So it's not just some human construct. It is an objective standard beyond humans. Just because we're alive to talk about it doesn't take away the fact that it's still wrong for them in their kingdom without any humans. That's the point.
In our perspective, it's wrong. And I'll say it again, if the lions had a more empathetic brain, a more complex brain, such as ours, they would think it was wrong too. But they don't have that. They are very instinctual animals. Okay, we are less of that. We have a more complex thought pattern. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. But that's still, just because we're smarter doesn't make the idea of good and evil any less relevant. Like there's still a good and evil. Would you agree that there was still good and evil animals long before humans ever existed? Did you agree? Would you agree that some animals were good and some were murderers?
Morality exists. Yes, morality comes from brains. It comes from thought process. But let me ask you this. Do you think slavery is wrong?
Of course.
Okay, so do you disagree with the Bible? Do you agree with the Bible on that issue? In Exodus, it tells you that you can beat up slaves and own slaves. Do you disagree?
Well, you need context for it, because that's obviously the way you framed it is obviously a trick question. No, God is not in favor of slavery. He's very well documented throughout the entire Old Testament and New Testament that slavery is bad. The verses like the servant is equal to the master. There's all kinds of points in the Bible about how slavery is wrong. The problem is in Exodus, there was a group of people that the laws, when they were writing Exodus, they were writing to a specific group of people about things that were already happening. God never told them that you should go get slaves. The slaves, some of them, there was two different types of slaves. Some were captured because of people that were trying to either raid or attack or whatever, and then they captured them and then they made them slaves to make sure that they didn't go run off, because it was either keep them as slaves or kill them. So I think that the slavery aspect is better than death, but at the same time, I mean, if they preferred death, they could have had that too, I guess. But also there was all the other form of slavery that was documented in the Bible. If you go and read it, it shows that it was indentured servitude. People would have to pay off debts or punishment, and they would volunteer themselves for 7 years or longer, however they had to do it. They would volunteer themselves to pay this off. Some of the slave owners were then being abusive about it, beating them almost within death because they were not good people, obviously. But the point of the matter is that there were people doing the slavery, and then God was making rules to keep them more humane about what they were doing to their slaves, because people were doing it anyway. It's the same thing that he did with divorce. God does not want divorce. He never wanted to write divorce. Moses did that, and he wasn't happy about that. But the people were married, and then they were sleeping with whoever they wanted to. And so Moses came up with the law about divorce, which God did not want, because God wanted you to find your person and be with them, to know them and stay with them and make family and all that. Moses is the one that wrote those laws in to basically try to humane what was being inhumane. So it wasn't like God was like, hey, you should take slaves. I want you to beat them. And here's what you should, just don't beat them towards death. You should keep them around. So I hear that all the time about God endorsed slavery. He did not. If you go and read the entire context, he was talking to a specific group of people in a specific region at a specific time because of the things that they were already doing. So he was trying to help them, but it wasn't the same type of slavery that we have that we had in America, where we were just taking people and just making them do whatever we wanted and beating them, doing whatever. It wasn't like that. It was a very
Hey guys, I heard biblical slavery, so I jumped in. No, I'm just kidding. So real quick, just put a pin on that, Mike, and you guys can get right back at it. I just want to jump in real quick. This is for the audience, for the viewers. If you guys have questions for Adam or Mike, start plugging them in the chat area, and just make sure you tag whoever you want that question to go to. Tag them by name. That way, I know who to ask, and we'll rock and roll there. So, gentlemen, get back at it.
Okay, so thanks. So if I was God, right, I would make it loud and clear, make it very easy to read that in no context, it is not, you should never, ever own a person as property or ever beat them. That's just me. Your God is, I guess, less moral than me. But now let's just say, now that you say that we were created, would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. What exactly do you mean by created?
Well, by me and you, or are you talking about Adam and Eve?
Anything.
They're different. So just, do you want me to cover all of them?
Pick
me and
pick
you
anyone.
were created by our parents. I think that's very obvious. I think we know that. We were created in that fashion. And I think you know the fashion. I don't know if kids are watching this, so I don't want to get into too much detail, but I think you know what I'm talking about, so I'll save some time. The other fashion, how Adam and Eve were created, God made Adam out of the dust of the earth. When you see that, I 100% agree, you said it yourself. We are made of carbon. We are made of the star stuff, right? We're made of the same stuff. I 100% agree. In the Bible, it claims that. It claims that we were made from the earth. If you look at the elements that are in the earth, they're the same as the elements in our body. Now, of course, we're a little different, obviously, but then it said he breathed life into us. I know you think that we evolved over time. I know, you've talked about this before, but, and we can get into that too if you want, but the way he made Adam was, according to scripture, at least, that's how he did that. And he breathed life into him. Eve, he took one rib of Adam and he made her out of that. Everyone else was made the traditional way, the way that me and you were made, other than Jesus. Jesus was made, was the virgin birth. And anyway, go ahead.
So
I hope that answered the question.
No, it didn't. It didn't make any sense, actually.
No.
So we actually aren't made of the same things as sand or dust or clay. That's just not true. I just
mean that we have molecules in us. We have the same stuff in us that the earth also has in it.
A tiny bit.
I don't mean that we're made of dirt and that we're made of trees or rock or something. I'm saying that the elements that are in the earth and in the universe are also within our own bodies.
Okay, well, we have a very good understanding of how humans and how life evolved. It wasn't from dust, okay? It was from molecules, carbon-based molecules that reacted over time and built upon each other. They can self-replicate, and over time, they become different, more complex life forms. And yes, we are stardust, but that's not what the Bible implied. The Bible implied we were made from the literal dust from the ground. That's just not true. And stuff with the atom.
How do you know that?
How do we know we're not made of? Was I there for creation?
Yeah. I mean, you clearly claim to know. There's
yes,
a lot of things
yes,
we possibly know. So I'm just asking for this one.
Yes, we can actually observe how we evolved. We can actually observe evolution.
You don't even know that evolution happened. It's a theory, and there's a lot of evidence for it. But you don't know that it definitely happened. You assume it happened, so therefore you're following the rest of that with the assumption that evolution is how we got here. But you don't know that.
Okay, so evolution is a fact. The only theory, I know you're going to say, oh, it's a theory. Yes, the only theory is evolution via natural selection. Mm-hmm. In other words, we can observe evolution. We can observe speciation. We can observe DNA. We can observe fossils. We understand how species evolve and speciate. what we don't really, what we were theorizing is how it happens, and that's via natural selection. In other words, survival of the fittest. That's what that meant. So we weren't. So yes, we can observe how we got here. Creation is a nonsensical term. There is no. It doesn't mean anything. You can't
You weren't
create
created
something.
by your parents?
No, I wasn't created by. I wasn't created.
You were never. Did you exist before?
As particles, yes.
No, as a human. Did you exist as a human?
No, I formed over time, right? Were you created as an adult, right? You're an adult right now. Were you created from a child to an adult? Were you created like that? Or did you form over time? Did you evolve and change over time?
Well, I was created by something from my dad and something from my mom coming together. That's how I was created.
Chemical reaction. Yeah.
After that, then I formed and, had different growth period, or, different stages of growth. But you see, the first car was created also. That doesn't mean, you're making the word creation mean like you're making it more complicated than it has to be.
No, you are, Adam. You're saying that creation, I would think you're saying that creation means, the definition of creation from the Bible is from nothing, ex nihilo, from nothing. That's what you probably mean. Is not what you mean?
That's when God created everything from nothing. Yes, but there's another way of using the word created. If I made a painting today, then I created art.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
No.
So you're getting hung up on terms. You're trying to change terms. Look up. Why do you think that when people are artists, they say that they're creative? Why is that a term?
No. I agree with you, Adam. Like, you can call it creation, but it really, if you actually look at it physically, what's happening is the artist is taking paint and a brush that previously existed. They existed before, and he's just putting them together in a way that we call a painting. That's what it meant.
Create a painting.
No, it formed.
Why do you have? I think this is the problem. Is you have such a hard time with that word creation. Why are you fighting
because it doesn't make
sense so much?
Because it doesn't make sense in the way you use it.
I said there's two meanings. I'm using it two ways.
So what's creation? Define it.
Well, God creating everything from nothing is one type of creation.
How did he create everything?
Because he has power. He has the ability to do. He's maximally great, which means he's whatever the greatest creator is of anything. He's better than that because he's maximally great. So if he has creative ability, he has the maximally greatest creative ability. If he has power, then he has the maximally greatest power available. If he's in all times, he has the maximally greatest ability to be in all places at all times. Anybody this is why I use that term, maximally great. Whatever you can think the best is, he's at least that or better. He's the maximum.
Okay. Let's say you're right. Couldn't there be something better than him that he's not aware of?
Because then he wouldn't be the maximally greatest being. See, this is why you have to define that term. Because think about this. Because people ask us all the time, what created God? Who created God? Well, nobody. Because if something came before him, he wouldn't be God. If something was able to create him, if something had more power than him, if something was older than him, he wouldn't be God. That would be. So the point is, in order to be the maximally greatest being, you have to be first. You have to be the most powerful. You have to have the greatest ability to create. You have to be able to make things out of nothing because nothing was there beforehand. That is what we mean by God.
Okay, and now what's your definition of nothing? What is that?
A lack of anything.
Okay, and what's that mean? Because every time
anything you can think
we don't
of,
have an example of that. What?
Anything you can think of, it's not that.
No, we don't know what that means.
You do. See, you're complicating terms, and this is not as hard as it needs to be. The idea of nothing, am I able to show you nothing? No, because I exist. So therefore, if I exist, I can't show you nothing if I'm here. So that's not nothing. The idea of nothing is a lack of anything, of everything. That is what nothing is.
That's the elementary way of looking at it. But if you actually look at it in a physical way, there is no such thing as nothing.
Physical way because there's nothing there.
Hold on.
That's the point.
Hold on. Nothing. There is no such thing as nothing. Okay. Even if you take empty space in a vacuum, there's nothing. There's no atoms. Not a single particle. There's still something there. There's still energy fields. There is something there.
That's not nothing.
We don't. So what is nothing then?
I don't know how many times I can say it. It's a lack of anything. You said space, void, open area, all those things didn't exist. None of that. That's what nothing is. If you want to say an empty void of space, space is still something. That's not nothing. So if you want to say that there was a quantum vacuum and the singularity at the beginning, that's also not nothing. So when we say nothing, we're talking about anything you can think of. It's not that.
Which makes no sense. You have no evidence of that. You can't demonstrate that. So you're just saying God created everything from nothing. That's all you're saying. You're not answering anything. You're not
No,
providing
I'm saying he created it because
information
of his
to us.
power. I'm not saying he created everything from nothing. That's just an easy way to save time. I'm saying he created it because of his ability to create things from thin air, from nothing. He speaks it into existence. He has that ability. That's part of it, or else he wouldn't be God.
Okay, and I can say the same thing for leprechauns. I can say leprechauns created everything.
Well,
okay,
you can if you want to call God a leprechaun, but a leprechaun's not maximally great.
No.
A leprechaun is a folklore that we learned on Earth. A leprechaun is known to hide out, is known to be a short guy in a green suit with a pot of gold under a rainbow. If you want to compare that with God, be my guest. But that's not what we're talking about. That's just a ridiculous way of trying to avoid the major meat of this conversation.
Okay, I'll say Allah. I can say Allah created everything.
You could.
So how can you possibly have that opinion without any evidence to back yours up?
Because it's anybody can be right. It takes away more than that. It's not just that one thing. That's just one of many things that leads me to believe that there's a God. The fact that anything exists, something had to have made all these things. So
no, that's not true.
Yeah. Nothing. Then what? So all of this is here eternally? There's no evidence for
it could
that.
Be.
So if you believe it,
let me speak for a second. All right. Yes, we could be here eternally. We don't. The matter that you're made of, the particles, the energy, it could have always existed. We don't know how it got here. Maybe it didn't get here. Maybe saying how did it get here or who put it here, maybe it doesn't make sense. If you look at a tree and you go, hey, who made that tree? Who put that tree there? Well, we know nobody did it. It evolved over time. You can trace it back to the seed and trace the seed back to molecules in the soil and the air and the water and trace all that back to the Big Bang. You can trace everything back to the Big Bang.
So what then made that?
I knew you're going to say that. The Big Bang was not the beginning of everything. That's not what scientists say. Okay, the Big Bang is simply a moment in time where the universe expanded. That's all it means. Now, when you say what caused it, maybe we don't know. Maybe nothing caused it. Maybe it is just a product of a quantum fluctuation.
Nothing
that has no cause.
Nothing can't create anything.
Again,
so it wasn't
now
nothing.
Again, you haven't defined what nothing is. Again, you haven't defined what nothing is.
It's not my fault you don't get it. It's a lack of anything. I'm just
I don't
saying,
get it.
I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, like, I don't know any other way to say it, dude. Like, if there was the only thing that existed was gravity, that's still not nothing. If there was one molecule, that's still not nothing. Nothing. It's very easy. Can I show you what nothing is? No, but it's easy to understand what nothing is in your head. It's a lack of anything. Think of anything you want. It's not that. That's the point, dude. It's very, I mean, I don't know. I can't physically hand you nothing. That would be contradictory. So you have to use your head on that. I can't make you see it.
Yes, you can. If you say it's real,
then go ahead.
Let me speak for a second. If you say nothing is real, you have to be able to demonstrate that it's even possible.
It's not real
in any way. You don't. Yeah, I'm not saying give me nothing. I'm saying demonstrate it in some way. You haven't. Nobody has been able to do that, and that's why if you expect me to believe that there's nothing, there's such thing as nothing, that as you describe, I can't believe that because there's no evidence of it.
Well, there is no nothing now because the fact that me and you are talking is not nothing. So I don't think there's ever going to be a nothing ever again. What I'm saying is before the universe ever happened, there was nothing there. Now God is not in that realm. He's outside of the universe. You can't be inside the universe and make the universe. Whatever caused the universe has to be outside of our universe. I think you would agree with that, right? Whatever it is that created our universe has to be outside of it.
No.
You can't create the thing that you're in, then it already exists. So logically, whatever created this universe has to be outside of it. This is, very basic logic.
Let me talk for a second. Look, we don't know. Again, we don't know what creation is. Saying something came into existence from nothing, it doesn't make any physical sense. Perhaps we existed eternally. Perhaps we're fundamentally energy. Perhaps our energy always existed. And saying what happened before the Big Bang, that doesn't make sense either. There was no time, as far as we can tell, before the Big Bang. We just don't know. We just don't know. Why can't you admit that we don't know? Why must you assume you're God?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm using deductive reasoning to show why would these things exist. I never said, and I've talked with Oz before about this, I never claim that I know for a fact that it was God and it happened like this. I say what I believe happened based on the evidence that we do see. The fact that the universe has a beginning, that it comes all the way back to one point. Even atheist scientists say this. Time, space, matter all comes back to that one point, as far as we know it. Now, if there's something on the opposite side, then that would be outside of our universe. And so whatever outside of our universe, whatever created time, space, and matter has to be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. It has to be. There's no logical way that if something already existed, then it can't create it if it already exists. So if, like you just said, as far as we know, time started in the Big Bang. If time started there, then whatever created time is timeless. And though that's an attribute of God, when we talk about a maximally great being in all places at all times, at all moments, that is a timeless feature. The fact that he can create space means that he isn't made of space. He's not affected by space or whatever created space. We'll take God out of the equation. Whatever created time is timeless. Whatever created space is spaceless. Whatever created matter is immaterial. Those are three perfect qualities of God. Now, you don't have to agree that it's God. You don't even have to accept that at all. But for me, being that those three things have to logically be sound, those are three attributes for God. So to me, that all the evidence as far as that goes clearly points in the direction of God. Now, am I saying that proves God? No, that's not where I'm going with it yet.
All right, guys. So I want to get back to eating my atheist popcorn, but I just wanted to pop in here and say, for time purposes, I want to go to closing statements, and I know we'll kind of leave that on a cliffhanger there, and maybe get you guys back on. We keep going there. I just want to make sure we respect everybody's time. So, Mike, if you want to take about 5 minutes closing statement, and then Adam about 5 minutes, and then we'll jump into Q&A. Everybody that's watching, again, put your questions on there. Tag who you want the question to go to. And remember, the super chats are active.
Okay. So, look, creation, again, we know that that matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It doesn't make sense for things to just pop out of existence from nothing. That doesn't make any sense in physics at all. To say that whatever created the universe, we don't know if the universe was created. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't make sense for the universe to be created. What makes sense is evolution. That's what makes sense. Things change. Energy states change. That's all we can tell. And nobody said that time started at the Big Bang. What we're saying is that's where we think time formed. Perhaps time is not what you think. Perhaps time is in space. We just figured out 50 years ago that time and space are intertwined. They're not different. They're actually all related. Perhaps these things always existed in some form previously that we just don't know about yet. We just don't know. And if I'm able to admit, and I'm able to have the courage and say that we don't know. Why can't you? But that's just me.
Am I on?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know if I was muted. Well, I like how you ended it there. You have the courage to say it. That's good. Well, I also have the courage to take a leap of faith and say what I think it might be, and say what I believe. And as you guys know, the way I get ripped up on TikTok, it's because I stand for my belief, not what I know, not what I have proof of. I also know that evolution is not a proven fact. It is a belief and it is a theory, and there's a lot of evidence for it. And I've given you, I would gladly give you that, because I also know that evidence is not proof of anything. Evidence builds a case. There's a lot of support evidential support for evolution, but there is not a proven. Nobody has ever seen evolution happen. We've seen microevolution.
No, we can directly observe evolution. No,
we have
we
not
can-
seen we have not seen a dog turn into anything that's not a dog. We've
Yes,
never seen a human
let-
turn into anything that's not a human. We've never
Yes.
seen these things. No, we haven't.
Yes.
We have not
It's-
seen which animal has turned into a different type of animal.
all animals, because we all
No.
evolved.
No,
yes.
no, you're talking
We
about
can directly
micro-
observe evolution.
The only thing we've seen is microevolution. We've
We've
seen
seen macro.
bacteria
They're the same
evolve
thing.
into other bacteria. We've
Let me speak
never
for a
seen
second.
bacteria turn into the start of like a mouse or a dog or something. We've never seen any different kind of animal become a totally different kind of animal. We assume it based on the things that we have of evidence and beliefs and all these things. We take fossils and we look at two animals that look similar, and then we say, see, this one evolved into the other. There's no proof of that. None
Yes,
of them
there
are
is.
timestamped. None of them have the DNA that go, yep, that's his son. You know, they don't
Yeah,
do
we
that.
do.
I don't know where you think that this has happened, but it has not happened. I encourage people, please don't even listen to me or Mike. Just look this stuff up yourself. It has never been proven that a different type of animal has completely changed into another type of an animal. We have seen microevolution, which is variation within the kind
Adam,
of
you
the
gotta let
animal.
me speak here, man. You gotta let me speak here.
Go ahead, dude.
Yes, we can observe macroevolution. Macro are the same exact things, just
No, they're
different
not.
time spans. Okay, go look it up. In genetics, we can also see in genetics, we can take a look at chromosomes that fused, that we can look at insertions, deletions, all these type of mutations that occur in DNA. We can literally observe speciation occur in a lab. Okay, we can observe evolution. That's why evolution is a fact. The only theory about evolution is via natural selection. That's the only theory. Okay, and you can deny it, but that's the facts. Right? And
not. Just people
Okay.
go look it up, because no, we have seen bacteria evolve into other bacteria. We've never seen bacteria turn
yeah,
into
a different species,
a mouse or another
a different
animal.
a different
Yeah,
species.
speciation. That's not what we're talking about. I told you there's more than enough of that, because there is microevolution, which is adaptation. We've seen adaptation. We see every time that you go back and you see birds change into other types of birds, they're still birds. It's always
Okay,
a bird. A bird
Adam,
never changes into a bat or a dinosaur.
Adam, look,
Go ahead.
take this
Your turn again.
take this over millions of years, and you're going to get a different
Yeah,
type of.
and that includes faith. That includes your belief, because nobody's ever seen that.
No, we
Yes,
can observe
this is what
fossils.
you don't get. This is what you're not
All right.
understanding, Mike. Yes, take millions of years, since nobody's ever lived even remotely close to that amount of time. So nobody has ever witnessed any of these things that he's talking about.
Adam, you're
you
speaking
can
way too much,
assume
Adam.
that these things happen.
You're
or
talking
if you
too much.
insert enough time. I'm not talking.
talking-
Well, you keep interrupting my final closing statement, so I have to keep talking too much. But anyway, let me just close with this, guys. Please look into it for yourself. Evolution has a lot of support. It is not a proven fact. There's a reason that people still debate this. It's because the case is not closed. But that being said, guys, I'm glad. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting us do this. And I'm more than happy to answer questions. And we can do this. And I'd be.
Well, hey, everybody. I'm pretty sure Moses lived 1,000,000 years. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we'll get into the Q&A here. So first question, Mike, is for you. Why do you look like Aladdin or a Persian prince?
It's all in my genetics. You can take a look at DNA and genetics, right? If you study this stuff, you can see how there's different phenotypes, different genes for hair type and hair color and eye color. It's all in the genes and genetics, which verifies that evolution is a fact.
Very good. Very good. All right. Next question is for Adam. If the point of the debate was, does God exist, was anything that you gave evidence for your God and not anything else?
I'm trying to think of what all I said now. No, I think that, well, there's plenty more that we didn't get into, and I'd be happy to do this again with you, Mike, if you want to, and we can talk about anything, any subject or topic. Yeah, I think that the big one that I named towards the end there about the time, space, and matter thing, I think that is one thing that heavily supports God. Now, I always clarify by saying none of this proves God. This is just very sound, logical assumptions based off the evidence that we do have, and then trying to make come to a conclusion about, well, what would have caused this? And so I don't think that anything that we've talked about today contradicts God. Even if evolution were true, which you clearly know that I don't believe it is, even if it was true, that doesn't take away anything about if God is possible or if God is real. And that's another thing that me and Mike have talked about before, that he thinks that God is physically impossible, which I don't think. I think even if you knew 50% of all things in the entire universe ever, there's still 50% you don't know, and God could exist in that 50%. So it's impossible to say that for sure God could not exist. I think that's a ridiculous claim, an arrogant claim, but maybe it's contradicting something that you're thinking or something. I'm not sure, but I think that when you look at the evidence, the biblical evidence, the historical evidence, scientific evidence, I think that, and philosophical especially, I think that the majority of it all points more in favor of there being a God that would put it into motion. The morality, thoughts, all these things, DNA, information in DNA. This isn't genetics of evolution. That's information that God put into DNA. So that would give you that John Stamos look, which I'm sure you do well with the ladies, man. I got to give you props on that. You're a handsome fella. So, but that being said, guys, I think that the evidence is more in favor of God, not a lack thereof.
Cool. Yeah, we can keep the crushing backstage. Okay, I guess. And then Adam, this was on. After a while, the questions disappear. Time goes by, but there was one that's gone now, so I can't pop it up. But it did ask, do you know what a scientific theory is?
The exact definition, I couldn't tell you, recite it word for word, but yeah, it's a theory that is formed basically by observable data in science, repeatable evidence, things like that. It's a theory that's based off of repeatable, observable scientific data. Something along those lines. So hopefully I didn't butcher the definition too much.
Yeah. So here's this isn't the one that I saw earlier, but it's along the same line. Adam, is gravity just a scientific theory?
No, we know laws of it. I mean, we know that it does a certain thing. It seems to do a certain thing. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a gravity major. But the limited science that I know, I would say that yeah, we can tell how much gravity a planet or a star should have based off its size, based off what it's made out of. We know that a larger mass item or a larger mass item, whatever you want to call it, has more gravity. I mean, it seems to be more of a law than just a theory. But yeah, there is a theory of gravity. So I mean, I guess yes to both.
Okay. And then question for both. Do you agree with the scientific consensus that mind precedes matter?
Like mind goes before matter? Like meaning you think before the chemicals react? Is that what you're
I assume that's what he's asking.
Yeah, and that's actually a great thing. And Mike, I'll give you more than enough time to talk about this. I actually wanted to ask you or say something about that too, because you were under the impression, you said that you can see thoughts and all this stuff, and you can measure them or weigh them or whatever. And you can't. Well, you didn't say weigh them, but that's one of the things that I said in the TikTok. You cannot see a thought. You can see the effects of a thought. You can see the effects that it has on your brain. You can see the chemicals moving, the electrons, as Mike said, the electrochemicals. You can see that. You can see the effects, but you can prove that the mind thinks before the chemicals react. So it's not that you're thinking because of the chemicals reacting. You can prove that the thought induces the chemical reaction. Because if you were in a lab hooked up and somebody showed you a picture of a dog or something, right? Well, the chemicals don't see the dog. The brain doesn't see the dog. You see the dog. You then get a feeling about it. Then you get brain activity in your head that's measured on a device, a computer or whatever. So it proves that your thoughts are what trigger the electrochemicals, not the other way around. So it's still more in favor for free will than a lack thereof.
Okay. So the neuroscience is clear on this. Your thoughts, we know how thoughts are produced. They're produced from electrochemical signals in your neurons. Okay, neurons can generate these electric signals. Your thoughts are formed by different patterns of neurons firing off, and in a certain pattern, that's where memories are formed. So, yeah, the mind is simply a product of the brain. Yes, a mind is a product of matter. Okay, and yes, we can see thoughts. Your brain filters these electrical connections in your brain into images, into thoughts. That's what your brain does. Your brain is basically a TV, like a monitor, right? Your brain is like a TV monitor. It's just providing all these images for your brain, and the neurons and the things firing, the synapses, these are the electrical connections behind it all. That's your computer chips. And your brain is able to project it onto yourself. So yes, the mind is created by matter.
Can I just follow up with that real quick? Because I think I can prove that wrong.
Go ahead.
Well,
Quickly.
like I demonstrated with the dog thing, you're thinking that the chemicals are what's triggering your thoughts. I'm showing you why that's definitely not the case. Because if you were to show a bunch of pictures in front of somebody that's hooked up in a lab, the chemicals are not going to make you have a thought. The thought of what you're seeing is going to affect your brain. And that is what is triggering the chemicals to do what they're doing. That's what's showing up. Like if you see a picture of your wife, your daughter, something like that, somebody that you love, you're all of a sudden going to have chemical reactions based on the fact that you see that, you love that, and then your brain reacts. It's not the other way around. Your brain doesn't react to a picture. Your brain can't see the picture. Your eyes see the picture, you form a thought, and then your chemicals start doing what they do, and it triggers in a place in your brain and then shows what part of your brain is acting based off of what you see. It requires the thought first. Clearly, it requires the thought first before the chemicals. Otherwise, you would see an image, you just sit there like just dull faced. And then once the chemicals started moving around for whatever, and I don't even know why the chemicals would move based off of an image. It's your thought that makes the chemicals do what they do. It's not the chemicals make your thoughts do what they do. So I think
All
you
right.
can prove that easily.
All right. We got to keep moving, guys. Adam, I believe this was intended for you, but John Anthony, thank you for the super chat, $5. Appreciate it, sir. Adam, if the thing that created time is timeless, when did it create time? If the thing that created space is spaceless, where did it create space?
Well, if the Big Bang is at the point that we think it is, and at the time that we think it is, then that is when time and space were created. But in the realm that God would live in, he is eternal, he is timeless, so he doesn't have a time. And he even says in the Bible many times, a day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years is as a day. He always comments on how time is absolutely meaningless to him. When you're talking about our universe, it appears as though the Big Bang happened 13 point whatever billion years ago in a very specific spot. So I would say if that theory is correct, and that point, and the age is the age that it is, and the point is where it is, I would say that's exactly where and when God decided to create time, space, and matter for the first time.
Okay, very good. And make sure we don't have any other questions here. I'll wait a second. But guys, again, thank you for the conversation today. And it's always good, to be respectful and let it get a little spicy. And you start talking about beliefs and gods and convictions can get heated. But I appreciate you guys keep letting it get heated, but staying respectful. So I appreciate that. So guys, we will wrap it up here. And I just want to say, if you want to follow us over, we do have another show tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have Jenna Belk on, and Ethan from the Friendly Neighborhood Atheist show. I can't always get all those words out at the same time. And we're going to discuss mental health and the stigma that lies behind mental health, even still here in 2020, and what can we do to help each other. So thanks, everybody, for being in the chat. The questions, you guys are awesome, and I'll see everybody at 9 p.m. Thank you.